Moving on now, Chilean President Michelle Bachelet, she has urged citizens to provide information on crimes committed during the military dictatorship in that country. Now, Bachelet's remarks come after 4 soldiers were detained to be investigated in connection with the murder of photographer Rodrigo Rojas in 1986 during Chile's military dictatorship. Now, the dictatorship, which lasted from 1973 to 1989, left thousands of people dead and disappeared. President Bachelet highlighted the many crimes committed during that period, which are still unresolved. Also in Chile, copper miners are demanding justice for the death of a co-worker at the hands of the nation's military police. Now, the worker was a subcontracted employee of the company Codelco and was part of a strike that has been happening for the past 15 days. Union leaders met with Chile's work minister to demand that they take responsibility for the death of that worker. The striking miners have said that they will continue with their fight for greater rights for subcontracted workers. A new de-escalation of the conflict in Colombia is underway following the FARC's implementation of a unilateral ceasefire and the government's decision to respond by halting air raids on the guerrilla camps. Our correspondent Natalia Margarita now with the latest.
Just 6 days after the FARC set in place a unilateral ceasefire, President Juan Manuel Santos ordered to stop bombing raids against FARC camps. The decision comes as both sides have committed to de-escalate the armed conflict.
We have agreed to de-escalate the conflict. To de-escalate the conflict means to slowly turn down the fire. And what does that mean in real terms? Less death, less sorrow, less victims.
According to the Conflict Analysis Center, CERAC, merely by the FARC's compliance with its unilateral truce, violence has significantly reduced. Now, with the suspension of airstrikes, the conditions are expected to improve, not just in terms of the confrontations, but also at the negotiations in Havana.
The premise of negotiating in Havana while the armed conflict continues in Colombia has already been proved to fail, as none of the parties can advance in their negotiating positions on the basis of violence. Now, if we withdraw the conflict and violence from the negotiations, that will strengthen the process in Havana.
Meanwhile, the current de-escalation of the conflict is already bringing relief to Colombia's rural residents, as they are the ones that know all too well the devastating impact of war.
We know how the bombs fall down. We know what it's like to have 10, 12 helicopters shooting while there is machine gunning going on the ground. The sound of jet fighters, it's pure desperation.
Regardless of this being the second time the government has halted airstrikes and the 6th FARC unilateral truce, rural leaders stay hopeful as they call on both sides to don't give up this latest de-escalation. While a final peace agreement still needs to be reached, social organizations consider that further victims must be prevented. Hopefully that will be a key outcome of the de-escalation of the conflict. Natalia Margarita, Telesur, Bogotá, Colombia.